The Atomic Age. Unit 6. The Manhattan Project and Victory in Japan. Learning Objective. Discuss the US's broad political reasons for entering World War II and how those motivations and wartime experiences informed post-war policies in the Cold War. For this lesson, you will need paper, pen or pencil, computer or mobile device, and headphones. You may go at your own pace. Feel free to pause and rewind the video as you need. Lesson Agenda. I do. Introduction. We do. Guided reading on Atomic Age and Victory in Japan. You do. Check for understanding. Homework. Summative writing. As we make our way through the lesson, consider this guiding question. What will be the legacy of the atomic bomb? The end of an era. 1944 was a busy year for Franklin D. Roosevelt. In addition to leading the United States through a war in two theaters, he was running for re-election for an unprecedented fourth term. Roosevelt won re-election running on his post-war recovery platform. However, his physical health began declining during the later war years. Less than 3 months into his fourth term, Roosevelt died on April 12, 1945. His vice president, Harry S. Truman, was sworn in as the 33rd president that very evening. The terms for surrender. Shortly after the United States captured Okinawa, the Japanese emperor, Hirohito, urged his government to find a way to end the war. The biggest problem was the American demand for unconditional surrender. Many Japanese leaders were willing to surrender, but on one condition: Hirohito had to stay in power. American officials knew that the fate of Hirohito was the most important issue for the Japanese. Most Americans, however, blamed the emperor for the war and wanted him removed from power. President Truman was reluctant to go against public opinion. Furthermore, he knew the United States was almost ready to test a new weapon that might force Japan to surrender without any conditions. The new weapon was the atomic bomb. Check for understanding. 1. What platform did Roosevelt win his re-election on? 2. Why did the Japanese not want to surrender unconditionally? The Manhattan Project. In 1939, Leo Szilard, a Jewish physicist who had fled Nazi persecution, learned that German scientists had split the uranium atom. Szilard had been the first scientist to suggest that splitting the atom might release enormous energy. Worried that the Nazis were working on an atomic bomb, Szilard convinced the world's best-known physicist, Albert Einstein, to sign a letter Szilard had drafted and send it to President Roosevelt. In the letter, Einstein warned that by using uranium, extremely powerful bombs of a new type may be constructed. Roosevelt responded by setting up a scientific committee to study the issue. In 1941, the committee met with British scientists who were already working on an atomic bomb. The Americans then convinced Roosevelt to begin a program to build an atomic bomb. The secret American program to build an atomic bomb was codenamed the Manhattan Project and was headed by General Leslie R. Groves. The first breakthrough came in 1942, when Szilard and Enrico Fermi, another physicist, built the world's first nuclear reactor at the University of Chicago. Groves then organized a team of engineers and scientists to build an atomic bomb at a secret laboratory in Los Alamos, New Mexico. Physicist J. Robert Oppenheimer led the team. On July 16, 1945, they detonated and tested the world's first atomic bomb in New Mexico. Check for understanding. 3. What role did physicist Leo Szilard play in America's development of the atomic bomb? 4. Who was Dr. J. Robert Oppenheimer? 5. Describe the purpose of the Manhattan Project. Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Even before the bomb was tested, American officials began debating how to use it. Admiral William Leahy, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, opposed using the bomb because it would kill civilians. He believed an economic blockade and conventional bombing would convince Japan to surrender. Secretary of War Henry Stimson wanted to warn the Japanese about the bomb and tell them their emperor could stay in power if they surrendered. Secretary of State James Burns, however, wanted to drop the bomb on Japan without any warning. President Truman later wrote that he regarded the bomb as a military weapon and never had any doubts that it should be used. His advisors had warned him to expect massive casualties if the United States invaded Japan. Truman believed it was his duty as president to use every weapon available to save American lives. The Allies threatened Japan with prompt and utter destruction if the nation did not surrender, but the Japanese did not reply. Truman then ordered the military to drop the bomb. On August 6, 1945, a B-29 bomber named Enola Gay dropped an atomic bomb, code-named Little Boy, on Hiroshima, an important industrial city. The bomb destroyed about 63% of the city. Between 80,000 and 120,000 people died instantly, and thousands more died later from burns and radiation sickness. 3 days later, on August 9, the Soviet Union declared war on Japan. Later that day, the United States dropped another atomic bomb, code-named Fat Man, on the city of Nagasaki, killing between 35,000 and 74,000 people. Faced with such massive destruction and the shock of the Soviets joining the war, Hirohito ordered his government to surrender. On August 15, 1945 VJ Day, Japan surrendered. The long war was over. Putting the enemy on trial. In August 1945, the United States, Britain, France, and the Soviet Union created the International Military Tribunal, IMT, to punish German and Japanese leaders for war crimes. The tribunal held trials in Nuremberg, Germany, where Hitler had staged Nazi party rallies. 22 German leaders were prosecuted at the Nuremberg trials. 3 were acquitted, 7 were given prison sentences and 12 were sentenced to death. Trials of lower-ranking leaders continued until April 1949, leading to 24 more executions and 107 prison sentences. Similar trials were held in Tokyo. The IMT for the Far East charged 25 Japanese leaders with war crimes. The Allies did not indict Hirohito, fearing that any attempt to put the emperor on trial would lead to an uprising. 18 Japanese defendants were sentenced to prison. The rest were sentenced to death by hanging. The trials punished many of the people responsible for World War II and the Holocaust, but they were also part of the American plan for building a better world. As Robert Jackson, chief counsel for the United States at Nuremberg, said in his opening statement to the court, "The wrongs we seek to condemn and punish have been so calculated, so malignant and so devastating, that civilization cannot tolerate their being ignored because it cannot survive their being repeated." Check for understanding. 6. What was the name of the 2 bombs that were dropped on Japan? 7. What was the IMT and what was their goal? 8. Where were the Germans put on trial? 9. What did Robert Jackson say about the trials? Lesson review. In complete sentences, answer the prompt below. What will be the legacy of the atomic bomb? Summative writing, argumentative. Creating arguments. Directions. Explain why the United States using the atomic bomb in Japan was either rational and justifiable, or irrational and unjustifiable decision to end the war. Justify your position by using 2 of the attached documents to support your position. Your writing should be 2 to 3 paragraphs long. Scan the QR code for access to the source documents. End of lesson. Make sure your name, date, and class period are in the upper right-hand corner of your paper. Turn the completed assignment into your class tray.